Thank you. I do appreciate it. Mr. Myberg, what viewing pornography at work, is that allowable or not allowable?
That is not allowable by very explicit EPA policy.
And what is the penalty for viewing pornography at work?
The penalty will depend on exactly what happens, on what the extent.
So what's the range?
The range is from a warning to dismissal.
Now you say in your testimony, page 2, all the EPA employees who work so hard especially deserve that we deal with the misconduct or poor performance swiftly and with integrity and professionalism. Do you think you've lived up to that standard?
I think that we are moving as swiftly when we get information. I think there is room for improvement, and we've discussed that already this morning in the communication between ourselves, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the Inspector General.
Listen, I appreciate that, but the cases we talked to you about, which are some of the most egregious we've ever seen in federal government, there is no evidence that you have moved swiftly. I don't see any evidence of that. Let's go back to Mr. Manning for a second. Why didn't you swiftly and immediately, you put him on paid administrative leave?
No, sir. I believe Mr. Manning was the case in Region 5 where he had child pornography. And
yes.
He was immediately taken on unpaid leave because there was a there was reasonable cause to believe that he had committed a crime for which a sentence of imprisonment could be imposed.
My understanding is he was put on paid leave and then transitioned to unpaid leave. Mr. Sullivan?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. He was initially put on paid leave for about 3 weeks. Then the agency transitioned that to unpaid status.
Let me ask you, Mr. Elkins, last night, my understanding is the EPA administrator sent out an email rescinding the MOU with the FBI. Explain that to us, and what is it that you're not getting that you believe you should be getting?
Thanks for that question. Yes, I did receive just around 5:30 last night an email from the administrator that stated that she had decided to rescind the MOU. What that really does is murky up the waters. We have never said that the OIG did not want an understanding or an agreement with the agency and the FBI so that we all understand what our roles are. You have to understand, sir, that we are in an environment where we have agents who are armed, who may find themselves in situations, if they don't know what they're doing, you can have a blue-on-blue sort of situation. It's a very dangerous situation. What the administrator's memo basically has done is that now we really don't have any guidelines. What we have is that OHS now will make the determination and work with the FBI on any intelligence matters to come in. It seems that whether or not they're criminal misconduct, we don't know, and the OIG is then dependent on the OHS informing us as to what's going on. I've been having this discussion for 5 years. That's been the practice. It's never worked, even with the MOU, and now since the MOU has gone away, what gives me any assurance that things are going to be any different? So we are back to square one again in a murky situation, and so that's the problem that we have. The OHS has investigators. That office is growing. They even have more investigators now with guns and badges. So the situation is actually getting worse rather than better.
So how should it be? What should, from your opinion, you've been around the block for a long time, how should it be?
Well, what should happen is a clear acknowledgement of the OIG's primary role in serving as the investigative arm of the agency where employee misconduct is involved, irrespective of whether it's an intelligence issue or whatever the matter is. The OIG should be the point of contact. That message needs to come clearly from the administrator so that everybody understands what their roles are. That has not happened.
Mr. Myberg, what's unreasonable about that?
Mr. Chairman, a couple of things. One is, I have to admit I'm a little puzzled about the rescinding of the MOU because it was my understanding, and we'll have to work with the OIG on this as we move forward, that the MOU itself was an objectionable thing and that the rescinding of the MOU was something that was desired. And I think the administrator's intent was to take that issue off the table. Now, the Inspector General's office has its jobs and the OHS has its jobs. And we fully agree with the Inspector General that the Inspector General needs unfettered access in the conduct of his lawful duties. And the administrator has stated repeatedly that that is what she expects of every EPA employee.
Do you have unfettered access?
No, sir, we do not have unfettered access.
Mr. Myberg, why doesn't he have unfettered access? You just said he should.
I admit to being puzzled because from where I sit, at least, he does.
Okay, Mr. Elkins, what do you not have unfettered access to?
Well, as I previously stated, sir, in terms of investigations, we conduct the investigations. We have the ultimate authority to conduct those. Right
Mr.
now,
Myberg, do you disagree with that?
Mr. Elkins, I believe, is referring to investigations of personnel matters, which we believe that he has the ability and right to do, and that we encourage employees to cooperate when he conducts those investigations.
So when you initiate those, do you inform the Inspector General?
We generally ask the Inspector General, as we
Generally? How about all the time?
pretty much all the time.
Pretty much all the time? Why not all the time?
We
What are
ask-
the exceptions?
When you have a matter that's a serious, and I'll use the Utro case as an
No, no, no. We just said all or nothing, right? So is it all or nothing?
When we have a matter that involves a conduct that requires investigation, we ask the Inspector General to come in and do an investigation. And I will also say that from the standpoint of my career, there have been many very productive investigations that the Inspector General has done that have been helpful to conduct and discipline in the agency.
Sir,
Mr. Elkins?
Yeah, the question that needs to be asked is when do they provide that information to us? What we are finding is that the agency may have the information and then they sit on it for a while, and then eventually, yeah, it may get to us. Also, Mr. Myberg, I want to be clear that we're parsing things out here. Mr. Myberg, in all due respect, indicated on personnel matters, they do refer it, matters to the OIG. It goes much further than that. Matters not only personnel, criminal matters, any matter that has a nexus to employee misconduct should initially, as soon as it comes in the House, they should pick up the phone and give us a call. That's not happening.
Mr. Myberg?
Again, I believe that the agency has been very clear that the Inspector General, in carrying out of their lawful duties, has unfettered access to the work of the
Well,
agency.
they have unfettered access, but they don't know what they don't know. The process to work properly requires you, the EPA, to inform the Inspector General that there may be an issue. And that be all of the issues, not just some of them, not pretty much, not any other disqualifier. And I think what we're looking for is the administrator to clearly articulate that throughout in some sort of letter or memo or letter to Congress or letter to, without getting somebody else involved. And that's where they're bumping into other people, and that's where I think it's causing a lot of rub.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. And I'll be glad to supply for the record the statement the administrator issued within the last 6 months over the fact that employees have a duty to cooperate with the Inspector General.
Let's keep following up on that. I need to ask a couple others in indulgence to the rest of the committee here. I'd appreciate it. Mr. Reeder, I have a question about the personnel records. Part of the challenge that we have in the specific case that Mr. Gowdy and others have brought up is that you did not go back and interview the immediate supervisor. Is somebody under consideration for a promotion? It seems like the very first person you do is go talk to their immediate supervisor, who's telling the Inspector General. That didn't happen. So the question that I have is, doesn't the personnel file, isn't there some sort of electronic record that you as a manager looking to promote somebody could go look and say, and doesn't it show up in some sort of personnel record to show that this person has had, at this point, more than a dozen women complain of sexual harassment to one degree or another?
Mr. Chairman, I think you're Mr. Chairman over there as well.
Yes.
I think, and I don't mean to offer this in defense of myself or any other actions, but just for clarification for the committee, this was a temporary assignment for Dr. Jutro. It was not a promotion, but it's not what we would consider a promotion.
Did he make more money?
No, sir.
Did his title change?
His title changed, but his position of record remained in the Office of Research and Development, and he was on a detail, which is a temporary assignment. And I don't mean, again, I don't mean that in a defense in any way, just that it's important to get the facts right. I know that you're interested in that. And it did not involve a promotion in the sense that the government considers promotions. So there was no formal vetting.
Yeah, but this we're talking about 17 women who were harassed, and there doesn't seem to be a flashing red light that goes off in somebody's office to say, hey, we got a problem down here. Why does it take 17 women? Why didn't it happen after the first incident?
So in answer to your question, I think I kind of got to that earlier with Congresswoman Lawrence's question that there, I think it might be beneficial to have a better record of what actions are being taken by management that are not centrally investigated or adjudicated.
So what are you going to do about it?
I have to say the vast majority of these cases often don't rise to a level of a serious charge of harassment, but they are matters that we have to take seriously. And I mean, I have invested as much as any senior executive at EPA.
What has to happen to a woman to be serious?
If it's unwanted and it's persistent, I mean, there's a very
Persistent, so if it only happens once, it's okay?
It doesn't rise to the legal definition. And
so if it happens once, if it's not persistent in your mind, then it's not harassment?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not defending harassment in any
You said it had to be persistent.
But I'm trying to tell
you qualified it with persistent, and I'm challenging that. Why does it have to be persistent?
That's what I've learned in the training from the EEOC, that it has to be of a manner that creates this hostile work environment for an employee.
So if it happens once,
that's very serious.
If it happens once, is it unacceptable?
It's unacceptable.
But in your mind, does it rise to the level? You said it had to be persistent.
It rises to a level that a manager needs to do something about it. Yes, it does. Does it rise to a level of a legal, I'm sorry, does it meet a test for dismissal or formal disciplinary action? It's all very case specific. But I have to say it's unacceptable at any level. And our managers are obligated to take action, sir.
And I appreciate the indulgence here, but your written policy says sexual harassment, written reprimand to removal. This,
correct.
Again, it's obviously not working, and it needs clarification. With the indulgence, one more question. I was asking if there was a penalty for watching porn, and you says it depends on what happened. I mean, how many different ways are there to watch porn? Where's the threshold where it depends?
Mr. Chairman, any amount of watching porn is unacceptable. When you were considering, you identified that there was porn, you look at all the factors that you would look at, the so-called Douglas factors, to consider in considering what penalty would be imposed. And they include the magnitude and extent of the offense, the employee's prior discipline and conduct record, and the other 10 factors that go along with the Douglas factor. That's what the table is intended to represent. Clearly, the cases that we're looking at here were very severe cases, and those exacerbating circumstances have been taken into account in the action that the agency has proposed to take.
And they still weren't immediately fired. They still were on paid leave. Here are two things I'd like you to do. One is specific to pornography. I want to see the written policy, and I want to see whatever notification you've put out over the last several years. I mean, maybe there's 20, maybe there's none, I don't know. Provide those to us in our committee. And then the definition of the sexual harassment, why the wide range? Is it a definition of persistent, not persistent? We're trying to help solve this, and that's the spirit in which we do this. We would appreciate your help. We thank you, gentlemen. I yield back.